On today's Locked On Senators, we're just a month away from the NHL draft, and back by popular demand, we've got another mock draft for you.
And we continue our 2024 NHL draft prospect profiles with three interesting players, with one whose brother is already making a name for himself in the NHL.
With a rival, no less. We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome inside episode 1057 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's Game Time, Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find the show everywhere you get podcasts. We are also available on YouTube. Today is Thursday, May 30th, and Pilsy, I love me some mock drafts.
So does everyone else, Ross. And that's what gave us the idea to be like, hey, we don't want to make a mock draft just to have everyone upset at our lists. Famously, the Montreal Canadiens fans were outraged that we selected Berkeley Catton for them. So we said, you know what? We're going to put this out on Twitter. We're going to let the world decide who gets picked when. And we didn't shy away. It's not like we tried to hide these picks in our little corner of Sens Twitter. Nuh-uh. We tagged the Locked On hosts of each respective team. We used the team's Twitter hashtag. So we tried to get input from obviously Sens fans, but fans of all the other teams we picked too. And it created some interesting results.
And with a poll on Twitter at Sens Central, by the way, a lot of them are still active. I put 7-day long polls, and this has been going on for the last
7 days.
Yeah, dude.
Nice.
On the 7th day, the mock draft rested. But until then, it's active. It's ready to go. We'll put the link in the bio if you want to scroll through, but we'll also do that here on YouTube. If you are watching, if you're listening, enjoy. Just sit back, relax, or keep your eyes on the road. But Pilsy, we didn't let the inmates completely run the asylum. We did make it a 4-person vote, and it was pretty clear cut 1, 2, 3. And after that, I mean, take your pick. It was complete chaos afterwards. And from a Sens perspective, it's very interesting because I think 3, if not 4, of the majority's top candidates were already picked. So it was really kind of a worst case scenario, I say in quotations.
Yeah, we're not going to get to the Sens pick today. So you guys are going to have to stay tuned for tomorrow's episode as we're going to do the top 6 picks that we did in our Twitter mock draft.
Yes, we are. And with that, let's not bury the lead, but let's not extend it out too much because it is a foregone conclusion that Macklin Celebrini will be the first overall pick. It's such a foregone conclusion. I didn't want to start the mock draft with any funny business online. So I said, Macklin Celebrini or Macklin Celebrini again, you clown, pick Macklin Celebrini. So with that, 100% of the votes were Macklin Celebrini. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's how numbers work, apparently. But yes, Macklin Celebrini, there's not even, Ross, in past years, we would have maybe one prospect analyst pick a different number one pick other than the consensus number one, try to get some clicks, try to create some debate, try to spark something, try to be different. Galaxy brain, have a way to decide why the number 2 guy is actually better than the consensus number 1. Nuh-uh. There's none of that this season.
There's none of that. He's going to be a great player. He's already a Hobey Baker winner. He's in all likelihood going to turn pro, right? We just saw yesterday at the time of this recording, Will Smith turned pro.
Yep, the
huge. San Jose Sharks first round pick, not this year, but last. So the Av kids, one at Boston College, Will Smith, and Macklin Celebrini, Boston University. I think it's in everybody's best interest to have those two gain chemistry together, being that 1-2 punch, hopefully for years to come down the middle with the San Jose Sharks. Phenomenal pick, and this team deserved it. Not only have they been absolutely atrocious since conveniently 2020 when the Senators had their first round pick, Tim Stützle. Thank you very much, Martin Jones, for that .896 save percentage. We appreciate you, sir. But also, they were just horse manure this year. They were as bad as it gets. They were dead last in the league, and it was a well-earned win for the San Jose Sharks. No changes in the draft lottery. So with that, I think we can move past Macklin Celebrini, who comes in at number 1 on every single mock draft that you've seen on the internet so far this year. Pretty interesting split, though, that many people voted the second one. I see you guys out there being funny. With the second overall pick, the Chicago Blackhawks are pleased to select Ivan Demidov out of Russia. 69% of the vote. Are you surprised that it was that lopsided, with Lev Shunov, the right shot defenseman, coming in at 19% in second place?
I thought it'd be a little bit closer, Ross, but I do think Demidov is the right pick here. Like, just imagine in years down the road, you're going to have a line where Connor Bedard and Demidov are playing together. Like, it's just, everyone knows you and I love Artem Levshunov. I think he's arguably the best defenseman in this draft. But when you have a guy like Connor McDavid already, and you can find a guy that has a high-end offensive talent like Demidov, it's so hard to pass on that guy. I think those two are going to make magic together. And then it pains me to say, Ross, but Chicago probably thinks they already have their top echelon defenseman when they use the pick acquired from the Ottawa Senators in the Alex DeBrincat trade to select Kevin Kurchinski. So I think that for that reason, they're going to go with the high-end forward here. And we know there's so many good defensemen in this draft. I think this is the right move.
Such a strange situation over there for Demidov in Russia, though, because he just dominated the junior league for 2 years in a row and still barely got a sniff at the KHL level, only 4 games. So I'm curious to see what Demidov's development looks like. But my goodness, the 10-6 style skating that we see with Mitch Marner sometimes, other guys who like to open up and be playmakers out there. Can you just imagine the catch and release from Connor Bedard off of his stick? So I agree with this choice. I know you have to wait, but let's be clear. The Chicago Blackhawks are not competing for a Stanley Cup next year.
Nope.
So I think it might even be in everybody's interest, including the organization, to wait a year.
Exactly. Yep.
And then you start his entry level a year late. And then as Bedard is getting paid, you can still have a top-fledged producer on his entry-level contract.
And Ross, without bringing Demidov in right away, you have another tanking rebuild season where you acquire yet another high-end talented player in next year's draft. So I think it does make sense.
That's just it. And with the third pick, the Anaheim Ducks are pleased to select Artyom Levshunov. No surprise there. 59% of the vote. Caden Lidstrom coming in second with 17%. This is just a perfect fit. Look, the decor for the Anaheim Ducks, it's already stacked. Last year, they had the top defenseman in the queue in Tristan Luneau. Yep. They had the top defenseman in the OHL in Pavel Minchikov, who's already a steady NHL defenseman, probably the guy you would pair with Levshunov, or you could pair him with the offensive defenseman who was the player of the year on the back end in the WHL, Olin Zellweger. So many opportunities. There's a chance, even just by me saying all this, it's like, oh, does Caden Lidstrom make sense? Add another forward, but even up front, like their cupboards are so stocked, but right shot defenseman, it's such a premium position that I think Levshunov is the pick. He's also probably closer to NHL ready than anyone else here on the board. So Levshunov, I think, is a phenomenal top 3 pick, and I will be surprised. Like, look, the hype train has left the building for Sam Dickinson, the London Knights in the Memorial Cup. Obviously, he's had that long playoff run. He's front and center. Whereas Levshunov is out of sight, out of mind, right? He hasn't played in like a month, and that's not his fault. There's nothing else he could have done about it. But I do think that this hype train for Sam Dickinson might push him into this conversation here at 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, it's possible, Ross. I just think Levshunov's skills and size are too much to pass on. And you look to the Anaheim Ducks, they just traded away. I always want to call him Jacob Bernard Docker. That's
Jamie Drysdale, a little bit more upside.
Yeah, I don't know why I mix those two up all the time. My apologies. Jamie Drysdale, they just traded him to the Philadelphia Flyers. They got Cutter Gauthier in return. So you want to refill another right shot defenseman. And now that you have Cutter Gauthier, you don't necessarily need another high end forward here because, like you mentioned, they've already got lots of those. So I just think at this point, if you're the Anaheim Ducks, you cannot pass on a right shot defenseman with that much size. Like, Ross, I see the Anaheim Ducks possibly going the Nashville Predators route. Draft as many high-end defensemen as you can, see who pans out, see who you like in your system, and then later you can always trade those guys for pieces that you need because everyone is coveting really talented, young, especially right-hand shot defensemen. So this is such an easy pick if I'm the Anaheim Ducks.
And with the 4th overall pick, the Columbus Blue Jackets will continue a trend that doesn't last forever, I will say, where the runner-up in voting then goes with the next pick. We got Caden Lidstrom going 4th overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets, 41%. So the closest so far, Anton Siliev with 24.5%, Tija Ginla at 17. Caden Lidstrom would just be another piece for the Blue Jackets. You can see a world where him and Adam Fantilli are doing their thing, maybe with a more perimeter player with hands like a Kent Johnson on the other side. But this is a best player available type pick for Columbus. And that's why I think it's closer because different people at this stage in the draft, it really does feel kind of, and it could be earlier. But for us, at least, and kind of the conversations we've had, it feels like the draft kind of starts at 4 after the 3. Maybe Demonov slides because the Russian factor, like Matvei Michkov did last year, maybe does. And that would be really cool because it would throw a wrench into kind of how all the proceedings happen. But Caden Lidstrom, probably the best player available.
Yeah, I would agree, Ross. It's unfortunate he missed so much time last season with injury, but his talent can't be denied. And I feel like this is a good safety net plan for the Blue Jackets if they're not able to get Patrick Laine back to the elite goal scorer he was. You can reload with Caden Lidstrom here.
Over 1,000 votes say Caden Lidstrom. 41% of those over 1,000 votes have him going to Columbus. Hey, Habs fans. Bonjour, ça va bien? Merci. Pour le 5e choix, les Canadiens de Montréal ont fiers de choisir Tija Ginla. 54%, Pilsy, 1,000 votes, over a majority. Tija Ginla, they want a high upside forward. That's clear. Habs fans want that. They used the 5th overall pick on Ryan Backer last year. They've got Lane Hudson developing unbelievably well. Caden Gooley was a first-round pick in 2020. They've got defensemen coming. They need a forward. I agree with that. I'm a little surprised that Beckett Seneke was so low. We heard you. We heard you, Habs fans. We left Berkeley Catton off here.
I wanted to put him on there, but we decided against it.
We probably could have put him on instead of Consta Helenius, who had 18% of the vote, the next closest. But Tija Ginla would be a great pick for the Habs. I hate to say it. It would be a great pick.
Jerome, start teaching Tige en français. Because, I really do think that this is the right spot for him. And Tija Ginla makes so much sense, Ross, because they've got little guys with talent like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, but you need someone that...
you said talent. Sorry, never mind.
Yeah. So that's where the list stops there for the Habs. But you need guys that are going to
imagine him and Slavkovsky 1-2 in the top 6, right? You got one of those guys on the ice at all times as the left winger. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, you need guys that are going to play a different brand of hockey and aren't just skilled offensively. Not that Tija Ginla isn't skilled offensively, but I just think he brings a little more jam to this Habs team that could definitely use it.
Absolutely. So we got Tija Ginla going 5th overall to the Montreal Canadiens, which leaves the Utah HC, the Mammoth, the Yeti. Who knows? But they'll be the hockey club for the first season. And we've got Zane Parekh going with 38.5% of the votes. Pilsy, your thoughts?
Zane Parekh is someone that a lot of people have the Ottawa Senators selecting at 7th. So this changes the way the Sens pick will go in tomorrow's episode. You'll find that out. But I think this makes a lot of sense for Utah. They've got so many guys up front. Their cupboard is absolutely stocked. I would love to see them take a big swing on a home run because, look, Utah's going to want to change the narrative from being the Arizona Coyotes franchise that was kind of the laughing stock of the league, couldn't get things together. Players weren't really happy there. They want to change the narrative, so they want to take a big swing here. And if it hits, drafting Zane Parekh as your first move could be an absolute slam dunk success, and they could sell a bunch of jerseys. You can market around him. I think this pick makes a lot of sense here.
It would be a great pick to an already stocked prospect pool. So I like this pick too, with Utah taking Zane Parekh, a huge home run swing there. So how does it shake out? If you need to see it a little bit more simply here, we've got Macklin Celebrini 100% at first overall. Then we've got Ivan Demidov going number 2. Artyom Levshunov at number 3, the first defenseman off the board. Caden Lidstrom at number 4. Tisha Ginla at number 5. And Zane Parekh at number 6, which leaves the Ottawa Senators at number 7, Pilsy. That will be tomorrow on the show. Looking forward to that conversation and a whole lot more. But Pilsy, we've also got some draft profiles to get to. So you're listening to Locked On Senators. We are your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. I love the Game Time app. I'm trying to get out to a lot more sports games this year. I'm trying to get to some different baseball games. I'm going to Chicago, going to some Jays games, going to some concerts. Hopefully, try to go to some theater events, maybe some comedy events. You can do that all with Game Time with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from their seat, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can look through the Game Time app yourself, get it on the App Store or wherever you get your apps. And what I love about Game Time is they make it easy. If you are not sure whether you're going to go to the game or not, and you're like, maybe I'll just wait a bit and see if tickets get cheaper. Last minute ticket deals, you can find them on Game Time. They got flash deals, zone deals. Ross loves knowing what the view from his seat is going to be like, so he uses the Game Time app to make sure that logo's facing the right way. He's looking at the benches. He wants to know what his view's like before he gets there, and you can do that with Game Time. You could save up to 60% when you buy last minute tickets for sports, comedy, theater, and concerts. All-in pricing tells you what the price is going to be up front. No thinking, I'm going to get a sweet deal. Then you get to checkout and it's like $40 more. What is that? Not with Game Time. And with the lowest price guarantee, if you find the same tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time's going to go ahead and credit you 110% of the difference. So go ahead, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork. Farm to Fork Delivery. It's a premium meat and seafood company servicing Ontario, Quebec, and our friends up in Nunavut. And Pilsy, I'm looking at the Ottawa weather right now. I'm seeing 22 and sunny on Friday, 25 and sunny on Saturday, 25 and sunny on Sunday. That means barbecue season.
Ooh,
and what better way to fill the grill than with Farm to Fork? You pack the freezer, and then they're each individually vacuum sealed. And these meats are premium quality. I'm talking all ethically raised, no hormones, no antibiotics, and we'll just go see what other people say. Absolutely delicious, an average 5.0 stars review on Google. These products are individually vacuum packed, which I love because it means that you can just take them out per order. It's like, boom, what am I having tonight? Don't have to worry about pulling it out. Oh, now I got to eat the same thing for a week. No, you can have the spice of life, which is variety with Farm to Fork. So go check out all their bundles. And because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, you get 10% off your first purchase with the code LOSP10. That's code LOSP10 for 10% off. It's a local Ottawa company. Our guy Derek is doing a great job with Farm to Fork. So you want to support us, support Derek, support a great business that is serving up delicious eats. You got to eat anyway, so why don't you get yourself some premium meats, treat yourself to a tomahawk steak, a ribeye, or get yourself some premium seafood, sustainable seafood. It's all delicious. It's all there for you with Farm to Fork. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, a reminder to follow Locked On Senators on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter and lockedon.senators on Instagram. For more draft profiles, you can also check us out on YouTube at Locked On Senators. All right, coming in at number 41 on our 2024 LOSP draft rankings, arguably the number one Swedish prospect in the draft. It's Alphonse Frey, an offensively gifted defenseman.
Yeah, Ross, Frey loves to have the puck on his stick in the O-zone, and he loves to rip the pill towards the net with his powerful wrist shot, and he put that on full display in the J20 League over in Sweden, playing with the Lakers. In 40 games, he had 14 goals, 19 assists, good for 33 points. As a left shot defenseman, I got him around 6'1", right around 200 pounds, so decent size as well. And the confidence that Frey plays with is so obvious. He's oozing with offensive confidence, Ross.
And as we look at Frey and just the wide range of rankings for him, McKeen's at 21, Pronman at 83. Like, just think about that range of possibilities. And a part of that, Pilsy, is because he hasn't had much of a test at the top level. That will change, though, going in to next season. And when I say hasn't, he's played one game in the Champions League. That's it. Otherwise, just junior hockey for Alphonse Frey. Next year, though, he's going out into the Allsvenskan, so the second tier of pro hockey. He'll be tested there because the way he can maneuver out of the zone is just almost too easy at the J20 level, the J18 level. So next year is going to be telltale. Unfortunately, though, teams don't have the time to wait. You're going to have to make a distinction of whether you're willing to bet on the upside of this 6'0" defenseman. Do you think he has what it takes, that it factor that will bring him to an offensive level against men?
Well, Ross, I bet if you asked Alphonse, he would tell you right away, yeah, he's got it. Because if you watch highlights of this kid, he is so confident out on the ice. He's got a powerful wrist shot that he trusts to unleash from the blue line, and he's had a lot of success with it. He's cocky out there on the ice. He's got the big sellies. I saw in the U18 games, Ross. Yeah. I believe it was up against Finland too, so a rival. He scores a goal and then goes to the crowd and gives him the Wyatt Bongiovanni, like, let me hear it. What do you got for me?
Everybody knows the Wyatt Bongiovanni.
Yeah, everybody knows it. And just every goal he scores, like, he doesn't just score a goal and then quick, like, head nod, fist bumps. Like, it's emphatic. He's fired up about it. He's letting the other team know that he beat them. And there's no question from any scouts, Ross, if this kid has offensive abilities or offensive attributes. That's clear with the points he's put up. We talked about the points he put up in J20, and in the U18s, he had a lot of success too, even playing over 30 minutes in one game. He was playing big minutes for Sweden. And then at the end of the season, they were like, hey, you want to play some J18 playoffs? And he's like, yeah, sure. It'll be a breeze. 6 points in 5 games. So clearly, this kid is ready to take the next step, and I think the Allsvenskan League is going to be a very interesting test for him.
I do too, because it's either like you're going to take the next step and you're going to become like that can't miss prospect. Like, think of last year, Axel Sandin Palika. Like, I'm getting a bit of that vibe from him, where it's like when the puck's on his stick, it may as well be on a string playing yo-yo out there. But at the same time, like, there is the defensive deficiencies that we have to talk about Alphonse Frey. Like, that's not what he's getting paid for out there to defend, but you have to be adequate, or else you're just going to be a turnstile when you come over to North America. So he's going to have to focus on that. But when you have the raw talent and ability that Alphonse Frey does, like, I have a feeling that a team's going to draft him in the first round. I just see him as that first round. I got to start keeping track of this, because I can't, at the end of this, have 50 first rounders and be like, hey, I nailed it. Hey, I got all 32 first rounders, when really I called 50 of them going there. But I really do see it with Alphonse Frey. Like, he's 21 on McKeen's list. We brought that up. Now, in between, we use 7 scouting entities. Craig Button has him at 31, Elite Prospects at 33, Chris Peters at 46. And this may be where I pump the brakes on the first round talk, because Bob McKenzie, who's so dialed in and just goes off what teams tell him, that he's down at 50 on Bob's list. Wheeler has him at 50 as well. Corey Pronman, nuts. 83. He's way higher than 83. Come on. Pilsy, was that World Under 18, 6.7 games. Not only that, though, Pilsy, you look at the game log. You look at how he did that. Only 1 assist through the first 3 games. Then he comes out. They get a huge overtime win over Switzerland. They needed it. He gets an assist there. Then he gets the goal against Finland. Then he gets an assist against Canada, losing in the semifinals, saving his best performance for last. In the bronze medal game, gets a goal and an assist. At the highest stage, he's able to produce, and his team gets a 4-0 shutout win. Is that enough, do you think? Or his entire body of work for a coach or an organization more so to fall in love with the player and take him early in this draft?
I don't see Frey going in the first round, Ross. And
Me neither. I've been saying it all along.
yeah, okay. And it's not really a detriment towards him. It's more, there is such a crop of talented defensemen in that 20 to 40 range that I just think he's going to get bounced back, just because teams are going to say, hey, we know you can dominate offensively in the J20 league, but we're not sure how you're going to do up against higher competition. And maybe that's not a fair knock, because a lot of these players are playing in junior league, so that's fine. But I just think the questions defensively will have teams maybe saying, hey, are there other defensemen we think are farther along in a more complete, well-rounded game? And I think that's where you're going to look at Frey and say, if there wasn't so many other talented defensemen, we'd jump on him. But I think in this range, you're going to find guys that are more pro-ready than maybe Frey is, which teams might not mind. They might say, hey, we don't mind giving this guy 2, 3, even 4 years to make it over here and to make an impact on our franchise. But other teams might say, we've got better options available. So, Ross, I like the player, love the confidence, love the shot. I'm giving him 3.5 stars out of 5 here, just because I think if the Sens were looking at him, it would be with pick number 39. And I just think there's better talent to be had in that range.
We should have already clarified he's a left shot defenseman if we didn't already. Just another kind of note there. Not that it's a be all end all, but I do think if you're a Sens fan, you're probably looking at that right shot depth and hoping that that's where it comes in. Now, I had trouble placing Alphonse Frey in our rankings. We're kind of doing our own list as we move up. So I don't even think I've really settled. I put him right in that Matvei Shervin, Dominic Badinka, that kind of range. So a little bit low for 39 for me, even though I do think a team's going to fall in love. And whoever takes him, he's the type of player where I don't know if he's going to play J20 at all next year, but if he does, we're going to see, and World Juniors, all that, like that team is going to get so many sick David Rundblad-esque highlight reel plays from that guy overseas. It's just how translatable is that. But if your team just drafted him, you've got an offensive weapon coming in Alphonse Frey, who comes in at number 41 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings. All right, coming up, we've got 2 more great prospects to get to today. We've got Tanner Howe and the brother of a Montreal Canadiens top prospect. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. A reminder, you can follow the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. All right, coming in at number 40 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, a good Canadian boy from the prairies. It's Tanner Howe, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan native, and Regina Pats captain this past season.
Ross, I'm so excited to get into the Tanner Howe discussion here, because I think as far as drafting and prospects go, there's so many intriguing ways you can look at this player, but it has to be said, I think he's one of the most well-rounded prospects we've looked at right now. He's very high on my list so far. And as a captain of the Regina Pats, should we just get this out of the way, Ross? I don't know if people know, but Tanner Howe did play with Connor Bedard. Tanner Howe definitely benefited from playing with a generational talent in junior. You don't have to ask too many people of the WHL whether that helped him or not. However, Tanner Howe also had a great year when Connor Bedard said goodbye to junior and had been playing in the NHL and left the Regina Pats basically bare, because that was a time where you trade a guy like Connor Bedard and you get a haul of picks, players back in return. The Regina Pats did not part ways with Connor Bedard, and they were left a shell of themselves when he left the team.
Yeah, he certainly did. Last year, Connor Bedard had almost 60 more points than Tanner Howe, but Tanner Howe was still third on the team, 1 point behind the guy who was in second. So let's just put it this way. Bedard was on his own planet last year in Regina, but this year, people just see the point production and how it didn't take a step forward. They're like, oh, Connor Bedard. But it's also just the fact that it's barren land around there. They got a new coach, I believe, too. It was John Paddock, old Sens coach, was there before. But Tanner Howe, Bob McKenzie has him as a first-round pick, 25th overall. Chris Peters at 30, elite prospects at 44, McKean's at 37, I should say, and Craig Button at 53. He's a very old player for this draft, November 2005 birthday, and a bit undersized for the style that he plays, 5'10", 175 pounds. He's a left shot centerman, and Pilsy sounds like next year he's going to be going to a contender at the deadline and be one of those hired guns to finish off his junior career.
Well, one of the things I like so much about Tanner Howe, Ross, is he's going to be ahead of the pack when it comes to prospects here. This guy has 207 WHL games under his belt. Like,
what, he started when he was 12?
It's insane. Yeah, you don't get players that have that much consistent experience, all with the Pats. So he's been able to get comfortable. He's the captain of the team, like we mentioned. So he obviously has leadership qualities. Now, this is what I want to get into, though, Ross, because at first you look at the point totals and you talked about it. It went down from last year. And a lot of times you're looking at that and you're saying, oh, in your draft -1 or draft year, you want your points to go up and show that you've improved. But when you're the leading scorer on your team and you're getting 25 more points than the next player, you got to do a lot of that heavy lifting yourself. Exactly. He did a great job. And I'm not going to let typical recency draft bias get it in the way of seeing what a good player he is. Like, I think some scouts maybe are like, you want to see that progression. He had 9 less goals than he did the year before. They're a little nervous about that. I don't really think so. I think he is such a high motor. He plays a physical game. Pronman and Wheeler all talk about how he's a competitor. He's got well-rounded skill. I just feel like this is the type of player that is instantly going to elevate your prospect pipeline. And you can say, we've got a guy who is so ahead of all the other prospects when it comes to experience, playing a well-rounded two-way game. And we think he's going to enter the system and be a pro much sooner than a lot of other guys. I feel very confident saying Tanner Howe is going to play in the NHL. Now, how soon, how long, and in what role? How? That remains to be seen. But this is someone that I think NHL teams are going to look at, and we might even see teams trade up to get him, Ross. I don't think it's that crazy.
Yeah, I think for an organization where it's like, hey, we're trying to extend our window to being a competitive team, it's like you can see this guy in your bottom 6 in the next 2-3 years, maybe one more year junior where he finishes off strong, gets the offensive pop, and gets to play with good players after the trade deadline, if not earlier. Then 1 year in the AHL, and then bang, he could be on your roster. So I like that, and I think I'm going to call my shot here. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs could be a team to watch for Tanner Howe.
Not.
I know. I just think that's like they took their big swing with Easton Cowan last year. That hit so far, but he's more of like that raw up and coming prospect. I think they go back to the WHL. They got Fraser Minton out of the WHL recently. I think Tanner Howe might be a Leaf. So let's watch how nice we are. But talking to Brendan Purdy as well, who covers the Regina Pats, he's just saying, like, look, he's a calm, confident kid, but He's like, you get around him for long enough, he'll start chirping, you having a good time. Just that leadership coming out and trying to make sure everyone's involved, even if they're a pigeon journalist like Purdy. Yeah, you heard me, Purds. All good. Now with Tanner Howe, though, in all seriousness, I see him as a guy who's going to be in that like early second round range. You know what? I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper to Cole Baudouin. Seemingly a similar player where it's like heart and soul, grit, grind, but some sneaky skill too. So I like the player, and I think he's going to be an early second round pick to maybe a team that is a competitive team. Like I mentioned, I'm looking at contenders to take Tanner Howe, but I'm seeing him as an early second round pick. How about for the Sens, Bills?
Ross, I agree with you. I'm seeing him as an early second round pick as well. How about the 7th pick of the second round at number 39? I would love for the Sens to take him at 39.
5-star?
Easy. I agree with your sentiment that it makes sense to go to a contender, Ross, because you can get him in the lineup, get him on an ELC playing bottom 6 role sooner rather than later. But I think that's a good argument for the Sens to take him. Their prospect pipeline is so barren right now. If you have a guy that you can just inject into there, have him play maybe a season in Belleville and then hop right up, you kickstart that process, and hopefully by that point, the Senators are a contender and you can use them on an ELC yourself. So I got him at 4 stars here, Ross. He's one of my highest rated players. I don't know. I just believe in this kid, and I think he's going to be a good player, and I hope the Ottawa Senators are at least taking a look at him.
Tanner Howe, with an average of 38.5, comes in to the Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings at 40th overall. For more draft profiles, go check us out. Locked On Senators. All right, coming in at number 39 on the Locked On Senators 2024 NHL draft rankings. Stop me if you've heard me before, but there is a Hudson hurricane terrorizing the USN TDP. Cole Hudson comes in on our list. 5'10", 165 pounds. Great. I got his height and weight out of the way. This guy's so electric, man. His highlight reel reminds me a lot of his older brother, Lane.
Yeah, and look, any prospect report, video, article you've seen on Cole Hudson, every other sentence is going to mention Lane and compare him to his brother.
Where's Cole going to school next year?
I believe, Ross, he is going to go to Boston University.
Who just signed out of Boston University?
Will Smith, right?
No. He was at Boston College.
I always mix up the BUs and BCs.
Dude, I tried to put it on a platter for you.
Lane.
It's Lane Hudson.
Yeah, I should have had that one. And look, we're going to do the same thing because there's such similar players that
until they're not, though. Stay tuned a little bit later. There is some contrast.
But for the most part, like the main package of
the
what
mannerisms,
you're getting, is going to be the same for both Hudsons. And I think Cole Hudson might have the opportunity to be a better player than his brother. I mean, with the USN TDP, 51 games, 15 goals, 31 assists, good for 51 points, a point per game guy as a left shot defenseman. You'll love to see that. He also dominated. It was outclassed, schooled, whatever adjective you want to describe his performance in the U18s. 13 points in 7 U18 games. That is incredible to see for a defenseman to put up that kind of points. And
dude, he was plus 14 in 7 games. Like, hockey must be so fun if you're that good.
Honestly, especially when you're playing at the top of your international peers. And with Team USA, he shined. And the reason he shines, Ross, I would say his top attribute, which there are many good attributes when you're talking about Cole Hudson, but his top attribute is the way he's able to break the puck up the ice. Our good friend David St. Louis from EP, go check out his Let's Watch videos. I watch every single one of them. He does a great job breaking down film and highlighting what players do, the little details, shift in and shift out of games. And he says he likes the puck moving and playmaking details that Hudson has. It just seems like Hudson gets the puck in his own end, and he does one quick initial scan. All right, he sees the ice. Then he starts skating. And then now okay, let's scan the environment now. He does another scan. And at that second scan, he's going to decide, do I have the open ice to carry the puck up myself? Do I go to option A as a pass, or do I go to option B? Like, he's thinking 2 steps ahead of everyone else. He's able to mix it up every time, so there's no tendencies that teams are going to latch on to. He's going to be able to trick guys, and he's just able to break the puck up the ice like not many defenders, even in this draft class, Ross, where there's a lot of talented defenders. Not many kids do it like Cole Hudson.
No, they really don't. And if you want to put it in perspective, this year, Cole Hudson, 51 points in 51 games. In Lane's draft year, 63 points in 60 games. Like, points per game, they're basically right there toe-to-toe. But I want to talk a little bit after I read out the rankings about what's different about Cole versus Lane. Craig Button, super high on Cole Hudson, 23rd overall. Chris Peters has him at 28. Scott Wheeler at 31. Bob McKenzie at 41, EP at 50, and Corey Pronman at 60. McKean's coming in at 55. So that's an average rank of 41.1. Now, that said, he's a June birthday, late birthday, lots of room to grow. He's going into a fantastic opportunity at Boston University where they're stacked, and they're going to be a great team next year, even without Macklin Celebrini, and he's going to be a big part of that. But I also watched his growth at the U18s. I was watching a lot of EJ Emery, huge fan of his going to North Dakota. But those two as a defensive pair were perfect together. Now, why does that contrast Lane? It doesn't. Now I'm getting to that. What they do differently is that Cole is more reserved in the offensive zone. From what I saw and what I'm reading, it's a little bit less instinct driven and more positionally sound. Coaches will probably like that a little bit better. Now, Lane Hudson's able to get those highlight reel moments where he breaks 3 guys' ankles. He goes and hounds the puck. You're not going to see that as much. It still happens, but as much with Cole. He's more going to let the play come to him in the offensive zone, and that allows him to stay in position and not give up odd man rushes the other way. So I think defensively, Cole is ahead of where Lane was at the time. Probably still is. I think where you look at Lane, it's all offense all the time. He's so exciting. He's so fun to watch. And with Cole, I think you're going to get still an offensive defenseman, but a guy who you're going to be able to trust a little quicker to play in his own end as well when you're up a goal or up 2 goals. So an exciting prospect, man. I think if you get him early second round, you're in a really fun spot with Cole Hudson.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Cole's going to get drafted ahead of Lane, just with the
64th overall, by the way, Lane Hudson.
Just with the way things are shaking out and how he looks. And Wheeler really noticed his improvement on defense throughout the year. I think that's one thing. When you're dominating offensively and the game comes easy to you like it did with Cole, your coaching staff starts to say, well, let's start to challenge you a little. How about instead of just continually racking up points, point per game player, so still did that, let's get you working on your defense a little more. And scouts, really, they were able to see that. He's got a high hockey IQ. And I think, Ross, the biggest difference I see with him and his brother is Cole plays a little bit more of a physical game and is a little more focused on the defensive side of the puck, like you mentioned. So I wouldn't doubt it if this guy sneaks into the late first round, Ross, but I think I agree with you. I think he's going early second round.
For more draft profiles, go check us out. Locked On Senators. We are your team every day. All right. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Locked On Senators. More mock draft coverage tomorrow. Let us know in the comments as well if there's any topic you want covered, because as of after next week, it's going to be looking ahead to free agency and anything else around the Senator sphere. Maybe Pilsy, maybe a Shane Pinto contract one of these days. That could be a nice treat.
Hopefully, Ross, we need that.
We certainly do. Hope everyone has a great day, better than I can speak. Thank you for watching, listening, supporting the podcast. We really do appreciate it. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.